going on in the case, action steps that I would take to try and resolve it, and just kind of talk about how I went about trying to protect the integrity of the school, the teachers, teacher in question, students, and ensure that everything is done ethically. So let's just do a little overview of the case in question. This revolves around a young teacher, Miss Walker, who was directed through an email to go to a website. And on this website, the teacher was essentially ridiculed by someone. Clearly someone referencing her class that she taught, science classes, and about how they didn't like her. They used vulgar language, and even at the end of the website they made a potential threat to her about who would like to see Miss Walker just disappear. There have been complaints about Miss Walker, about the rigor of her class being too much, and that complaints of poor teaching, and the principal has been working with Miss Walker to try and improve those aspects of relationship building essentially with the teacher. She sounds like she's a teacher who knows what she's doing in terms of the class itself, but not much more is known to that. But there are kids who don't seem to like her, and potentially this is obviously created by one of these students, but we don't know for sure. What we need to know, though, we do not know yet who made the website, right? That would be impossible without some tracking down. Miss Walker has made reference to a student of hers named Randy Franks. She says that basically he despises her and is pretty annoying in class, is disruptive, and she points to him, right? No evidence of this yet, was not mentioned on the website, any names that I'm aware of. We need to know where the website was made. Was it made in school? Was it made outside of school? Was it made on a school electronic device? Was it made on a personal device? These are very important in terms of punishments. But the most important thing, though, is that we need to do a review on the understanding of student free speech and the implications of what is allowed and what is not. And the courts have made rulings on these things before, so we're going to need to review some of that information. So again, we don't know who made the site. That's going to be a priority as the administrator of the building, trying to figure out who did that. Does the website constitute free speech? And really importantly, does the information on it constitute a threat to Ms. Walker? And this last one that I have bolded and underlined, is it a potential disruption at school? This is important because some of the cases involved in topics like this of outside free speech from students, the judges refer to this or use this phrase, this disruption at school. So this is kind of the steps of the plan of action. I'm going to go through each of these individually on their own slides. So contacting certain people that can help solve this problem itself, looking at previous court rulings to see where we stand on this, interviewing students obviously that might be connected, and last thing is reviewing digital citizenship instruction at the school, because this clearly falls under that, and maybe there needs to be some improvements systematically at the school. So first, contacts. First and foremost, I would contact the police. If I were the principal in the situation, I would want to make sure that I support the teacher in any way that I can. Regardless of the fact that there have been issues with her, supposed issues with her teaching from parents and students because she's too challenging, I think that's a good thing. Maybe she does struggle a little bit with organic relationship building with students, but that can be worked on, and we would continue to work on that. But the police do need to be contacted and made aware of this website, just to see what they say about it. Superintendent, obviously, this could become a very big, hairy legal issue down the road. Make sure they're aware of this as well. And the technology department, mostly to see if they can discover if any school computers were used to make this website, if it was made in school or not. The second thing I would do is make sure that I'm brushed up on previous rulings that deal with this, and there are a couple, but one of them stood out to me when I did this research, and that was Kowalski versus Berkeley County Schools. a website was created that harassed other students. So it's very similar to this, except it was a student, not a teacher. And the school did actually suspend and discipline the student under the harassment policy, which makes sense. The family and the student took this to court, saying that it violated their freedom of speech, didn't happen at school, so they didn't have any right in this. And this is kind of a big deal right now, right? Because one of the first landmark case on student free speech was Tinker v. Des Moines, the public schools there in Iowa, with the armbands and protesting the Vietnam War. And what essentially came out of this was that students don't drop their freedom of speech, what they call it, the schoolhouse gates. However, when this ruling was made, it was done before the internet, right? You had to be with people to talk about that. There were no cell phones, any type like that. No digital media, really. And so we're in a new world of this, right? So what are the limitations? Kids do have free speech, but essentially the one thing is this line here. Courts, in this case, ruled that we have to protect students from harassment, and also teachers, and would there be a reasonable prediction that the website or whatever digital media was created could reach the school, right, through friends, through other communication, and cause a potential disruption? And in this case, they said it could, right? And that's kind of been the whole focus of these courts and these rulings is did this or could this? Is there a reasonable suspicion that this website could cause disruption in the schools, right? There are other cases of kids protesting in the schools and forcing kids to wear certain badges that were protesting something, and it caused a huge disruption in the school. And even though this is free speech, right, the school kicked out these kids, and the court ruled in their favor as well because they couldn't conduct the business of the school. So that's what this kind of stands on. Could it cause a disruption in the learning environment? Interviewing students. Any students might be involved. Of course, the student in question potentially, maybe even after we get some more information from the technology department. This, of course, is challenging because as a principal, I do not want to cause a further disruption myself through this interview process. And it's almost impossible, right? The second you start interviewing kids, they're going to tell people what you're interviewing them about. So I don't want to do anything to harm Miss Walker anymore than she has been in this process. But we would need to try and find out any information through that. Or even other teachers. I don't even know that I would make an announcement to the teachers about this until I knew more information. And then, of course, with digital citizenship, promoting that in the schools. What I don't know, another thing that we don't know in the case and the information was provided is, did the learning environment get disrupted, right? It cut off before we got to school. So that's important. If yes, if this is spread around the school and we can find out who it is, that kid is going to face severe consequences for this. The standard suspension situation, that's been the case in many of these rulings that have happened. If not, we can get the website taken down. There was actually a court case about that where a student wasn't punished for it because it didn't cause a disruption. No one really found out about it, and this website was just taken down. There might be some minor punishments, but again, where's the free speech line? It also depends on whether the things that were said libel. Are they not true? Are they, what is the line of free speech? And that I'm not an expert in. Would the student face restrictions, right, that kind of thing, but also reviewing how we go about digital citizenship instruction and making sure that we're promoting the well-being of students through that. We're teaching those things in class, and if we don't have that in place, then we're going to need to implement it, right, because we're seeing that this is something that kids think is okay to do. Teacher side of this, right, I do not want to come across anyone thinking that I'm blaming the teacher. In no way, regardless of whether or not the teacher is a bad teacher or a good teacher or a challenging teacher, it's never okay for a student to do something like this. It's never okay for anybody to do something like this. And the issue, though, is that free speech is free speech. I would try to look into this idea of poor instruction. It mentioned that in the case information, but nothing about Ms. Walker would tell me that she has poor instruction or is bad at the teaching side of her content. What I saw was that she struggles making those connections with students. And I would continue to support her in helping her develop skills to build better relationships with students, regardless of this happening or not. But just trying to ensure that I'm on her side and that we want to get to the bottom of this is very important. But to make sure that she is not making declarations in her class about the website, she doesn't want to further the problem, put fuel to the fire, I guess, is what we would say. Just to keep her calm, and so that we can figure out what really happened. So just a personal reflection from this. When I started this, I of course was feeling horrible. This does happen. I mean, there are so many court cases I came across where this is a thing. People making websites to ridicule others, to bully people, and it's disappointing, right, that people do that. Immediately when I read this, I went, well, this is a free speech issue, and I hate free speech issues because we pride ourselves in this country, this idea of freedom of expression and speech, and there's a line, right? So, but the question is, it's foggy when we cross that line, and I hate it when we have to deal with those kinds of things. It's never black and white. It's not clear cut. It's subjective. And I was also thinking that if the district does not have a written policy about what student free speech looks like, we might want to go over that, right, about these specific things about making websites and social media and the do's and don'ts of that. Integrity and ethical behavior, how I tried to uphold that as a principle. Then jump to conclusions about Randy Franks. In fact, in the case, we don't know if he did that. Sure would look into him as a possible suspect, but she teaches many students. Could have even been a parent that made it. I made sure to review case law, to see if this situation falls under any of those prior rulings, to see if we were taking the right steps and if this looked similar, and contacted the superintendent about that, because the superintendent would then, of course, contact the lawyers that are for the school. And, of course, searching for facts. I'm a person that wants to find facts, and I'm not going to act without them. In fact, in this case, we couldn't, right? We can't just say Randy Franks did it because he's a jerk to Ms. Walker. We would see if we could actually find something. Dignity and respect for others, so maintaining ethical principles and professional norms. Did not make a public announcement to the school to draw attention to this. Did not, rage out on the population of students. I would have interviewed students from all spectrums, the well-behaved students to the ones who are breaking the rules all the time about this, trying to get to the bottom of it. And most importantly, supporting the teacher in this case, letting her know that I'm going to try and figure this out. So that's kind of how I would go about this one, and hopefully that can get to the bottom of it. And personal code of ethics, first and foremost, trying to make a positive change out of the situation, so really trying to focus on that digital citizenship piece at the end, ensuring that we are providing that instruction to students in some way, shape, or form, whether it be through study halls or in class itself, but using examples. Even looking at the cases, the Supreme Court cases would be, I think, useful for students. I did not blame anyone out of the gate. Wasn't pointing my finger or blaming the teacher for this for happening. Nothing like that. And of course, trying to work with Ms. Walker at the end to build those positive interactions with her students. So that's how I would go about it. Not sure if it's the right way, but trying to maintain an ethical outlook on it and looking for facts.